My name's Leo, and this was back in Mr. Harrison's AP Calculus class, junior year. Mr. Harrison was, well, he was brilliant, no doubt about it. Knew his math inside and out, but he also knew he was brilliant, and sometimes he made sure everyone else knew it too. He could be a bit sharp, a bit impatient if you weren't catching on as fast as he thought you should. Not mean exactly, just superior. We were deep into derivatives, or maybe it was integrals. Honestly, the specifics are a bit fuzzy now. What I remember clearly is the atmosphere in that classroom on that particular Tuesday afternoon. It was late spring, warm, and the windows were open, but the air inside felt thick and heavy. Mr. Harrison had a problem up on the board, a real monster. He'd been working at it, explaining, erasing, rewriting, his chalk stick getting smaller and smaller. You could see the frustration starting to build on his face. His brow was furrowed, and he kept tapping the chalk against the board, a nervous little tic he had. Most of us were lost. I was pretty good at math, but this one had me scratching my head, staring at the jumble of symbols like they were ancient hieroglyphics. Sarah, next to me, was doodling little frustrated stick figures in her notebook. Even Mark, who usually got everything, looked stumped. The silence in the room was the kind where you can hear your own heartbeat. Then the door creaked open. It was Mr. Henderson, the janitor. Mr. Henderson was a fixture at our school. An older man, maybe in his late 50s or early 60s, quiet, always with a slight stoop to his shoulders. He had kind eyes, though, crinkled at the corners, and a gentle way about him. He'd nod if you passed him in the hall, maybe a soft afternoon, but mostly he just went about his work, sweeping, emptying trash cans, mopping. He wore those gray work clothes, a bit faded, and you'd often see him with his big cart of supplies, moving slowly but steadily. He was just Mr. Henderson, part of the background, like the lockers or the water fountains. He came in quietly, as he always did, to empty the trash can by Mr. Harrison's desk. He didn't look at the board, didn't look at us, just doing his job. Mr. Harrison, still fuming at the stubborn problem, turned. And I guess in that moment of peak frustration, he just needed an outlet. He saw Mr. Henderson, and this smirk, a really unpleasant one, spread across his face. "Well, well," Mr. Harrison said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Perhaps Mr. Henderson here, with all his worldly wisdom, can shed some light on this little conundrum for us. What do you say, Mr. Henderson? Fancy a crack at some advanced calculus?" A few kids snickered, not loudly, more like nervous little coughs. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. It was cruel, uncalled for. Mr. Henderson, caught off guard, straightened up a little, his hand still on the trash can. He looked confused for a second, then a faint blush crept up his neck. He just shook his head slightly, a small, almost imperceptible movement, and started to turn back to his cart. "Oh, don't be shy." Mr. Harrison pressed on, clearly enjoying himself now, basking in the uncomfortable attention of the class. "Come, on up. Maybe you've got a hidden talent we don't know about." He gestured dramatically to the board with his piece of chalk. "The stage is yours." The snickers got a bit louder this time. I remember looking at Sarah, and she had this pained look on her face. I felt awful. I wanted to say something, tell Mr. Harrison to stop, but I was just a kid, and he was the teacher. The power dynamic was huge. Mr. Henderson stood there for a moment, looking from Mr. Harrison to the board, then briefly, almost shyly, at us students. His face was hard to read. Not angry, not exactly embarrassed anymore, more thoughtful. He was still holding the plastic liner from the trash can in one hand. Then, very slowly, he put the liner down on his cart. He took a step towards the board, then another. The room went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Even Mr. Harrison seemed a bit surprised that Mr. Henderson was actually moving forward. I think he expected him to just mumble an apology and leave. Mr. Henderson reached the front of the room. He looked at the complex equations scrawled across the blackboard. He stood there for what felt like an eternity, just looking. I remember thinking, oh, this is going to be even worse. He's just going to stare at it, and Harrison will be even more smug. Then, Mr. Henderson reached out a hand I'd only ever seen holding a broom or a wrench, and picked up the piece of chalk Mr. Harrison had left on the ledge. It was a small, worn nub by now. He turned his back to us, facing the board fully. His shoulders, which usually seemed so stooped, looked a little straighter, and then he started to write. At first, it was just a couple of small corrections to Mr. Harrison's work. An erased line here, a changed variable there. Mr. Harrison, arms crossed, watched him with that same smirk, though maybe it wavered a tiny bit. But then Mr. Henderson started writing more. He wasn't just tinkering. He was moving things around, adding new lines of equations, his hand moving with a sureness that was completely unexpected. The chalk squeaked softly against the board, the only sound in the room. We were all leaning forward, mouths slightly open. I don't think anyone was breathing normally. He wasn't fast, not like Mr. Harrison who could fill a board in minutes. He was methodical, careful. Each symbol was neat, precise, and as he wrote, the problem started to unfold. It was like watching someone untangle a hopelessly knotted string, patiently, expertly, until it lay straight and clear. He filled up one section of the board, paused, then moved to a clear space and continued. It went on for several minutes. I glanced at Mr. Harrison. His smirk was gone. Completely. His arms were uncrossed, hanging limply at his sides. His mouth was slightly agape, and his eyes, usually so sharp and challenging, were wide with, I don't know, disbelief? Awe? Finally, Mr. Henderson wrote a short line, underlined it twice, and then, almost as an afterthought, circled the final answer. He put the tiny piece of chalk back on the ledge. He didn't turn around to face us. He didn't say a word. He just walked back to his cart, picked up the trash liner, tied it off, and placed it with the others. Then, he quietly pushed his cart out of the classroom, the door sighing shut behind him. The silence he left behind was deafening. It stretched on for a full minute, maybe more. We all just stared at the board. The solution was elegant. It was clear. And from what I could tell, it was absolutely correct. Then, slowly, Mark, the class genius, let out a low whistle. "Wow," he whispered. That broke the spell. Everyone started murmuring at once. "Did you see that?" "Where did he learn that?" "No way." Mr. Harrison was still standing by the board, staring at it. He looked pale. He ran a hand through his hair, then walked closer, examining Mr. Henderson's work. He traced some of the lines with his finger. After a long moment, he turned back to us. His face was flushed. He looked humbled, genuinely humbled. "Well," he said, his voice much quieter than usual, almost hoarse. It appears the problem is solved." He cleared his throat. Class dismissed. He didn't make eye contact with any of us. We packed up our bags, our minds reeling. As I walked out, I saw Mr. Harrison still standing there, looking at the board not as a conqueror of equations, but as someone who had just witnessed something extraordinary and perhaps was reevaluating a few things about himself. The next day, Mr. Harrison was different, subdued. He didn't mention the incident, and neither did we. But the air in his class felt lighter. He was more patient, explained things more carefully. He even smiled a couple of times, a real smile. I couldn't get Mr. Henderson out of my mind. I saw him in the hallway later that week. He was polishing the brass plaque by the principal's office. I hesitated, then walked over. "Mr. Henderson?" I said. He looked up, his usual kind, quiet expression. "Yes, son?" That was amazing. What you did in calculus class the other day." A small, shy smile touched his lips. "Oh, that. Just a bit of old knowledge rattling around." "But how? Where did you learn calculus like that?" I asked, genuinely curious. He sighed, a soft sound, and put his polishing cloth down. "A long time ago, Leo," he said, using my name, which surprised me. "A long time ago I was a student too. Loved math, physics, got a scholarship to a good university, studied engineering. My jaw must have dropped. Engineering? Then, what happened? He looked away for a moment, out the window at the trees on the school lawn. Life happens, son. My father got very sick. I was the eldest. Had to leave school, come home, help support the family. Took whatever work I could find. One thing led to another, and, well, here I am. He picked up his cloth again. The learning stays with you, though, even if you don't use it every day. He gave me another small smile. Don't you go judging. Books by their covers, Leo. There's a lot more to people than what you see on the surface. He went back to his polishing, and I walked away, my head spinning. It changed things for me. I started noticing Mr. Henderson more, saying hello, asking how he was. Other kids did too, I think. There was a new respect for him, a quiet acknowledgement of the depth we hadn't seen. Mr. Harrison never mocked anyone again, not like that. He became a better teacher, I think, more human. And I learned something really important that day, something more valuable than any calculus equation. I learned that intelligence and worth aren't tied to a job title or the clothes someone wears. I learned that brilliance can be hidden in the most unexpected places, and that a little humility on everyone's part goes a very long way. Mr. Henderson, the quiet janitor, taught us all a lesson that day without ever saying a word about it. And I've tried my best to carry that lesson with me ever since.